DKDB Nashville.
Hello, friends. It's your buddy Lou Pickney with you here with the DKDB update. February 23rd, 2026. Some quick reactions here to a few of the latest 2026 NFL mock drafts here in the DKDB, my personally curated, human-curated NFL mock draft database. I put the best of the best here in the DKDB. No filler, no AI, no committees. Real people, real experts. Great people on the independent scene, as well as those affiliated with major networks and publications. Let's get to these reactions here. I'm going to start with my first time reacting to Eric Froton from NBC Sports. Let's see what Eric has here. Fernando Mendoza, quarterback Indiana, as you would expect, to the Las Vegas Raiders. Nearly everybody will have that. Arvell Reese, linebacker, Ohio State, to the Jets at 2. I would say more than half of the credible mocks at this point still have that, but it's hardly a given. Francis Mauigoa, offensive tackle, Miami, to the Cardinals. My new mock coming out tomorrow is going to have that. Mauigoa to the Cards. Carnell Tate to the Tennessee Titans is interesting. The Titans could go with an edge rusher here as well, but Tate is a really reliable receiver. Caleb Downs to the Giants. I've heard a lot of talk that might be a possibility. Wonder what John Harbaugh has in mind there. New era with the New York Jets. Could be Downs at 5. If so, he'd be the first safety to go in the top 5 of the NFL draft in 16 years. At 6, Spencer Fano to the Cleveland Browns. Browns are expected to have multiple needs on their offensive line this offseason with a bunch of players facing free agency. David Bailey to the Commanders at 7. I think between Reese, Reuben Bain Jr., and David Bailey, and we'll see Bain in just a moment, at least one of those 3 players should be there in theory for the Commanders, and if not any of those 3, they probably have a good shot at getting Caleb Downs. At 8, the New Orleans Saints. Now, they're expected to have needed edge rusher, so we'll see what the Saints do. Running back, with in particular Jeremiah Love, has been popular here, as have receiver projections, but edge has to be considered, although the last 2 drafts, the thought going in was the team with that number 8 pick was going to use that selection on an edge rusher, and both times it didn't happen, so keep that in mind. At 9, Kansas City, Jeremiah Love, if he's there, to the Chiefs. I think that'd be a great matchup. It's my reaction here to the latest mock draft from Eric Froton of NBC Sports, and Eric at 10 has Mansour Delane, corner, to the Bengals. There's some Cincinnati fans, they're friends of mine, that do not want them taking a corner here at 10. They would not be happy about that, and though Delane is an excellent talent. At 11, Miami Dolphins. Instead of going corner, they go with the wide receiver, Mekhi Lemon. That's interesting. The Dolphins with a receiver at 11. At 12, the Cowboys get Sonny Styles. I like that matchup a lot if he's there. I think Dallas cannot count on Styles slotting to 20. He might not be there at 12. LA Rams get Jermod McCoy. They're going to need help at corner. And McCoy, generally seen as one of the 2 best at this point, pre-Combine. Remember that Combine coming up in Indianapolis, starting later this week. A lot of players are going to make a lot of money there, proving what they can do. Baltimore Ravens at number 14. Keldrick Falk, edge, Auburn. Big-bodied edge rusher. A 3-down defensive end. You can have him on the field. Unlikely running plays, and he's not going to be a liability. Cassius Howell to the Bucs at 15. I've seen some people have a little more of a fade on Howell as of late. We'll see how he does in Indianapolis. If he can quiet the doubters, then perhaps Howell mid-first is a reasonable opportunity, a reasonable expectation. The Jets at 16, Jordan Tyson. Now, that would be quite a thing for Tyson to still be on the board here at 16. If he is, it'd be a nice boost to that Jets receiving corps. 17, TJ Parker, edge, Clemson to the Lions. I think Parker's going to keep moving up boards. He'll show up sooner or later in some mocks for the Buccaneers at 15. He's going to keep moving up, I predict. At least if his performance during Senior Bowl week down in Mobile is any indication. I'm definitely bullish as far as TJ Parker goes. At 18, Peter Woods, defensive lineman, Clemson. To the Vikings. Vikings need help at corner. They can go with a safety, but here instead they go with the excellent Peter Woods. Got that tremendous quickness. Great pass rusher as an interior defensive lineman. At 19, Eric Froton says Caden McDonald, defensive lineman, Ohio State. McDonald had 8.5 tackles for loss. last season for the Buckeyes. So Carolina has a lot of different spots they could go here, but here it's McDonald at 19. At 20, Eric has the Dallas Cowboys selecting Avion Terrell, corner from Clemson. So the Cowboys get Sonny Styles. At 12, you come back here at 20 and get Avion Terrell. At 21, Pittsburgh Steelers, Denzel Boston. I like that a lot. Pittsburgh get the 6'4" Boston in there. Got great size. Steelers need a top-notch young wide receiver. 22. I'm a huge fan of this matchup right here, if it happens. I think it would be a nice fit. Vanga Yone, guard, Penn State. Many people's opinion, the top interior offensive lineman, as far as the prospects go for this draft. And I think he'd be a great fit for the Chargers, given their team needs. And that's what Eric has here at 22. At 23, it's Kenyon Sadiq, the Eagles. I think if Sadiq's on the board, that is a definite possibility. Eagles have a lot of options here at 23, but I like Sadiq as a possibility. At 24, Casey Concepcion, a dynamic space player, Eric notes here. So the Browns go offensive line at 6 with Fano and come back at 24, wide receiver with Concepcion. At 25, Caleb Banks, defensive lineman, Florida. Banks, I think, will impress people at the Combine just like he impressed people down in Mobile. He only played in 2 games last season due to injury, but when he's healthy, he's a difference maker on that interior defensive line. At 26, Zion Young, edge rusher, Missouri, to the Buffalo Bills, who also could consider linebacker or receiver here. Caleb Lomu still on the board, going to the 49ers at 27. I can see the 49ers going with an offensive lineman, and Lomu is young. He's only a redshirt sophomore, but this is the range where you would expect him to likely go. 28, a name I've seen a lot as of late, Monroe Freeling, tackle, Georgia. Really good offensive lineman. Would likely be a good fit for the Texans if he's on the board there for him at 28. At 29, Caden Proctor. I noted through the various mocks that had Proctor all over the place. My last update. Here it's Proctor to the Rams at 28. So the Rams, an offensive tackle that could play guard despite his 6'7", 366-pound frame. Although if the Rams got him there, it would likely be to play tackle. At number 30, C.J. Allen, linebacker, Georgia, the Denver Broncos. I like that a lot. There's certain guys like Kenyon Sadiq as well that if they're there, I think would be a great fit for the Broncos. C.J. Allen, one of the best off-ball linebackers in this draft. At 31, missing the R in his last name, Max Einaker, tackle from Arizona State. Somewhat inexperienced. He's only started playing the sport after the pandemic. But he's got tremendous talent. He mentions it right here. So he didn't start playing until 2021. East Los Angeles Junior College. And now here he is getting a lot of talk as a potential first-round pick. And finally, 32, Brandon Cisse, corner from South Carolina. I think Cisse is going to impress people at the Combine. Keeping a close eye on Cisse. His shuttle time, his 40 time, etc. And here at number 32, he goes to the Seattle Seahawks. That was my reaction. Mock draft from Eric Froton of NBC Sports. Now let's see what Dalton Wasserman of PFF has. A celebration right there. So Mendoza to the Raiders, Reuben Bain Jr. to the Jets. See some of that. If it's not Arvell Reese here, you get a lot of Reuben Bain Jr., you get a lot of David Bailey. These edge rushers are going quick here in Dalton's latest mock. Arvell Reese to the Cards at 3, David Bailey to my hometown Tennessee Titans at 4. I think if the Titans can get Bain, Reese, or Bailey, that'd be a nice pickup. I know there'll be other positions considered, but I think that would match what the new regime's looking for. At 5, Francis Maui-Noah to the Giants. I like the idea of the Giants going offensive line. I think it makes more sense. It seems more likely at this point with Maui-Noah versus someone like Spencer Fano. Fano's starting to slide a bit on some boards. Still first round, but not necessarily top of the charts. At 6, Carnell Tate to the Browns. If he's there, I like that a lot for the Browns, who also have a pick at 24. Here's Sonny Styles going at 7. Mentioned talking about Eric's mock about how Styles was still there for the Cowboys at 12, and that wasn't a guarantee. Well, here's one of those not a guarantee situations. The 3 top edge rushers, at least the 2 edge rushers, and then Reese, who can also play edge and linebacker. If they're gone, Sonny Styles would be a nice fit for the Commanders. Jordan Tyson to the Saints. A lot of talk the Saints could go with Tyson, or maybe Mekhi Lemon, one of those receivers there. Another Jeremiah Love to the Chiefs, if he's on the board at 9. I just think about how interesting that Chiefs offense would be if you added a dynamic playmaker like Jeremiah Love in there with Patrick Mahomes. Man, they could do some damage. At 10, Peter Woods. This is kind of high here for Woods. But Woods going at 10 to Cincinnati. Interesting. At 11, Mansour Delane to the Dolphins. I like that a lot. The Dolphins really should give strong consideration at corner here, especially if Delane's on the board. At 12, Caleb Downs. So Downs slides a bit here in Dalton Wasserman's latest mock, and he's there for the Cowboys at 12. Should be elated. You hear things about certain teams and certain players. I've heard a lot that Dallas is legitimately interested in Caleb Downs, but whether they're going to trade up to get him is another matter. But here he slides. He's there at 12 for the Cowboys. At 13, the Rams get Jermod McCoy, fill a corner need. McCoy tore his ACL in one of his knees in January of last year, but he's expected to have a full recovery. We'll see what he does in Indianapolis, and then at his pro day for Tennessee in Knoxville. At 14, Baltimore Ravens. Vega Yone going to Baltimore. See, I love that matchup with him at 22 to the LA Chargers, but that's predicated on him still being on the board. And in many mocks, he's not there. He's got by 14 in this one. Dalton at 15 has Cassius Howe to the Bucs again. I've heard some naysayers as of late. I know Howell had 11.5 sacks last season. I'm aware. But I've heard some saying they want to fade him a bit. We'll see what he does at the Combine. That's going to be a player to watch. The whole thing about his arm length will get some people, I think, thrown off a bit. I just look at his production from last season. That kind of speaks for itself. At 16, Mekhi Lemon still on the board, going to the Jets. Jets get a nice pickup here if that happens. Spencer Fondo, like I was saying, some people are saying, look, he's a good talent, but maybe not top 5, maybe more 15, 20 range. Here, the Lions have needs, offensive and defensive line. Here they go tackle Fondo at 17. Avion Terrell, the Vikings at 18. Vikings have need at corner. Makes sense. Caleb Banks, interior defensive lineman for the Panthers. Some pass rush from the inside. Here's C.J. Allen going a little bit higher than some might think. But the Cowboys are able to go with Sonny Styles up at 12 and then get C.J. Allen here. Man, that defense. They're going to have to address their edge rusher needs, but that aside, you bring in 2 great players. So anybody down near the end of this first round thinking about C.J. Allen, he might not be there. Don't just presume he's going to slide there down to 30. He could be gone before that point. Here's Denzel Boston to the Steelers. Another thought that could be what happens. I like that matchup a lot as far as possibilities go. Akeem Mesidor, the LA Chargers at 22. Remember, Mesidor will turn 25 years old in early April, which is old for an NFL draft prospect, particularly for a first-round candidate. But Mesidor had a great season at Miami last year. And here, Dalton Wasserman of PFF has Mesidor to the Chargers at 22. At 23, South Carolina corner Brandon Cisse to the Eagles. A lot of variants, a lot of different thoughts about what the Eagles might do here at number 23. At 24, Caden Proctor to the Cleveland Browns. You think between the 6 and the 24, one of those 2 picks, you would think it's very likely the Browns will address offensive line needs. And here they get the dynamic and massive Caden Proctor at 24. 25, the Bears defensive line, Caden McDonald. I like that pairing. I think that could be a good fit for the Bears. Here's Dylan Thieneman going to the Bills at 26. Dalton notes Cole Bishop could use some help at the other safety position. Thieneman's going to impress people in Indy. He's going to have some good workouts. He's a hard hitter. I mean, watch his tape. He's a good player. He was a good player at Purdue before he got to Oregon. Here he's going to Buffalo at 26. At 27, KC Concepcion to the 49ers. I've heard that name linked there quite a bit. Something to keep in mind. Monroe Freeling to the Texans. A lot of people are thinking that might happen. Then you get Emmanuel McNeil Warren, safety from Toledo. He's tall, 6'3". We'll see what he does at the Combine. I'll be very interested in seeing his 40-yard dash time. How he performs there, because there are a lot of people that are very high on him. And here he goes to the Rams at 29. Then you got Kenyon Sadiq. Here's the stopper for Sadiq. Most mocks have Sadiq going first round, and usually the low end. If he's here at 30, Denver picks him up. They'll take that, thank you very much, and have you as a nice target for Bo Nix. At 31, TJ Parker, edge rusher, Clemson. There's a lot of great talent at edge rusher in this draft. But Parker, again, I think he's going to impress people in Indy just like he did down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl practices. but he goes to the Pats here at 31. And finally at 32, Dalton says Keith Abney II, corner from Arizona State, to the Seahawks. That's my reaction to the latest mock draft from Dalton Wasserman of PFF. One more. Justin Melo, formerly of the Draft Network, but now as of within the past week, now with Sports Illustrated. Congratulations, Justin. I'm sure they'll do a great job with SI, what they've got going on with their mock draft coverage, or their NFL draft coverage in general. So let's see. They got on SI, got the SI stuff right here with Justin Melo. So again, congratulations, Justin. Good luck with everything with SI in this upcoming draft. Let's see what he's got here. At 1, it's Mendoza to the Raiders, like you would think. Arvell Reese to the Jets. Like I said, more than half of the credible mocks at this point have that. But it's not like it's a lock or anything. The Jets, they've got a lot of deciding to do. And they'll have a chance. They've got 2 months, or it's like today's February 23rd. April 23rd is night 1 in the 2026 NFL Draft. At 3, Francis Mauigoa, offensive lineman, tackle from Miami, would fill a big need for the Cards at right offensive tackle. David Bailey, edge rusher, Texas Tech, to the Titans. That would be very helpful. The Titans get a blue chip edge rusher there at 4. At 5, Carnell Tate to the Buckeyes. From the Buckeyes to the Giants. Tate, stellar career in Columbus at Ohio State. Adept at getting open and tremendous hands. He catches practically everything you throw his way. Here's Spencer Fano going to the Browns at 6. So they go offensive line here at 6. And for all I know, they could go at 24 as well. Some people think that that's what the Browns will do. They'll go offensive tackle / guard or whatever at 6 and at 24. And number 7, Caleb Downs to the Commanders. So Washington gets Caleb Downs here. There's some whispers that could be serious consideration there for Washington. You'd think it would be. At 8, here's Reuben Bain Jr. So another thought the Saints, as much has been talked about with either Jeremiah Love or one of the top receivers here, Reuben Bain Jr. on the board, going to New Orleans at 8. At 9, Justin Melo has Jeremiah Love to the Chiefs. Notice how this keeps getting matched up. That's not a matter of happenstance. Love is also an excellent receiver out of the backfield, which you pretty much have to be if you want to be a serious first-round running back in the modern NFL. You got to be able to catch the ball. Not just iffy at it. You got to be good at it. Love is great at it. Tremendous player. Had a great career at Notre Dame. And would really give an extra boost to that KC offense. Got to scare the rest of the AFC West. At 10, Caleb Banks, defensive tackle, Florida, the Bengals. I told you, Banks has impressed people. These workouts he had, the practices for the Senior Bowl. He'll impress people in Indy. He's a tremendous athlete. Here he's going at 10 to the Bengals. At 11, Keldrick Falk, edge rusher, Auburn to the Dolphins, which really interests me. Some people aren't nearly as bullish on the corners as others, or as the top cornerbacks versus edge rusher. Here it's Falk, the size. It's an edge rusher from Miami at 11. At 12, here's Sonny Styles to the Cowboys. I think if Styles is there, the Cowboys, unless they fill that need in free agency, but current needs as they are, you got to think Styles at 12 is going to be the move. At least strongly considered. Unless someone like Caleb Downs is there. I don't think Downs is getting past Dallas. At 13, LA Rams, Mekhi Lemon. I like that a lot for the Rams. Get a quality receiver at 13. You come back at 29 and do something else. There'll be some great corners down there at 13 versus if you want one of the top receivers. You got to choose between Lemon or Tyson. Not too bad at number 13. At 14, the Ravens go Jordan Tyson. Cassius Howell. I thought it'd be Howell to the Bucks at 15. Some people are very high on Howell. Recent intel, some people may think more day 2. You got to watch. There's a lot of talent at edge rusher, but again, the stats speak for themselves from what he did performance-wise for the Aggies last season. College Station. At 16, the Jets, Caden McDonald, defensive tackle, Ohio State. I like that for the Jets, going with a tackle here at 16. There's some talented tackles in this draft, defensive tackles. And after trading Quinnen Williams last year, the need spot for the Jets, to be sure. At 17, Monroe Freeling. I told you his name's been getting talked about more and more. Rising on up. He could be the choice for Detroit at 17. At 18, Mansour Delane still on the board. Man, that'd be a nice pickup for Minnesota. They get Delane at 18. They need a corner. Another thought, Kenyon Sadiq, tight end Oregon to the Panthers. I think that's a distinct possibility for the Panthers here. Cowboys at 20, Colton Hood. So you get Sonny Styles at 12 at linebacker. You come at 20, come back on the board, and it's Colton Hood. 21, Pittsburgh Steelers, Casey Concepcion. Texas A&M receiver going to the Steelers at 21. At 22, Vanga, the Chargers, one of my favorite team and player matchups in this draft. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, the Chargers could do something different in free agency and make that less of a priority, but I think if he's on the board here, Vanga to the Chargers, it makes so much sense relative to team needs and likely players available. At 23, the Eagles go with Caleb Lomu, offensive tackle, young player out of Utah. Denzel Boston. See, I think it'd be, Pittsburgh passing on Boston to go with Concepcion. I'm not so sure they do that. That's what Justin has here, and they might. These decision-making processes are still a work in progress 2 months out from the draft. So Boston, the Browns. So the Browns go offensive tackle at 6. You come back at 24. Boston's on the board. You go receiver. At 25, TJ Parker, edge rusher from Clemson to the Bears. You'll see a lot of different predictions for the Bears. But D-line is one of them, and Parker. And he'll continue to impress people. He's a really good talent. Here's C.J. Allen to the Bills. I like this matchup right here. If the Bills decide not to go receiver, if the players they want at receiver aren't there, then C.J. Allen, off-ball linebacker from Georgia, will be a very nice fit. Malachi Fields, wide receiver Notre Dame. Fields is one of those players that had a very impressive performance at Senior Bowl week practices down in Mobile. I mean, if you watch Notre Dame games much at all, you know Fields is legit. But he proved it down in Mobile. He'll prove it again in Indy. He's got the goods. And he'll be one of several receivers being considered in this late first-round range. That's what the prediction is from Justin Melo for the Niners here at 27. At 28, Peter Woods, defensive tackle, Clemson. We see this with these defensive tackles, Woods in particular, a lot of variance. And nearly everybody's saying first round just because his ability to pressure the quarterback from that interior defensive line position make him a wanted commodity in the NFL. At 29, Jermod McCoy. This is a bit of a slide here for McCoy. What a draft here for the Rams. They get their pick between Lemon or Tyson at 13, and you come back at 29 and you get McCoy. Man, you could get some nice scores on your draft card if that happened. Jake Golday, linebacker, Cincinnati to the Broncos at 30. I think off-ball linebacker has to be consideration here for the Broncos. Like if Kenyon Sadiq's there, okay, maybe you go tight end. But if he's not, well, Golday's getting a lot of talk as a late first prospect. At 31, Akeem Mesidor. Again, Mesidor turns 25 in early April. I think it makes a lot of sense for him to go to a team with a need right now at edge. He's a player that can contribute right away, or at least that's the expectation. He's not somebody who wants to develop over the course of a few years. By the time the draft comes, he'll be less than 5 years away from turning 30. Time moves quickly in the NFL, if you hadn't noticed. Only at 32, Brandon Cisse, corner, South Carolina to the Seahawks. If he's there, I like that fit for Seattle. That's my reaction. The latest mock from Justin Melo, now with Sports Illustrated. Congratulations to Justin there with SI. So I encourage you, go to the DKDB, bookmark this page, update it on a regular basis. The best of the best in here. No AI, no slop, no filler. It is curated by me. I put the very best in here. Take it very seriously. So that's it for this DKDB update. I'm your host, Lou Pickney. Tomorrow, I'll be going through my mock draft reveal. I have my new mock draft up, my latest 2026 NFL mock, just in time for the Combine. We'll have that on tomorrow's update. That's it for this DKDB update. Talk to you again soon. Bye for now.